if you think about the websites that you actually read, they're going to be short paragraphs, short sentences, lots of what we call white space, i.e. just like blank space on the page, because people are on their mobile phones or they're scanning, as we say, 15 different tabs at one time. So they don't have the attention span to read your academic essay.
Welcome to the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast, the place where teachers from around the world meet to share innovative ideas about music education. Listen and learn as we help you motivate your students, grow your income, expand your studio, and become a more creative piano teacher.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 95 of the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast. And if you're one of my InnerCircle Piano Teaching community members, a very special welcome to you. Today is another great chat with a professional, inspirational teacher from around the world, and you'll get to meet her in just a moment. My name is Tim Topham, and I'm your host, and this is the place where you can get weekly inspiration, ideas, teaching and business strategies for your growing piano studio. Today's show notes and a full transcript are available at timtopham.com/episode 95. Now, a quick couple of reminders before we start. If you're listening to this on the day of its release, which is the 7th of July, 2017, then hopefully I'll be seeing you next week, if you're in Australia, at the APPC in Adelaide. That's from the 10th to the 14th of July. It's the National Australasian Piano Pedagogy Convention, and it's going to be great fun. I'm looking forward to creating and delivering a couple of presentations there. And I'm also organising a meetup with some of the guys from Hal Leonard and inviting all of you to join us. The details will be at timtopham.com/meetup. And also, I'll be hanging out in Chicago at the NCKP from July 26 to 29. If you haven't got your ticket yet, then make sure you do. Come along. It is a great convention. Tickets are at keyboardpedagogy.org. And I'll be organising some timtopham.com and podcast and member drinks on the Thursday night of that conference at DOC Wine Bar, which is right near the venue. It's going to be great fun. Again, tickets and more information about that meetup is at timtopham.com/meetup. All right, so this is the first podcast in our July theme of technology. And today we're diving into probably the most important online marketing tool that you have, which is your website. Specifically, today is all about building websites, where to start, what you need, the kind of things you can put on there, where to find them, and how to get things right from the beginning. And I'm particularly excited about this topic because my guest today has actually created a complete step-by-step, like literally step-by-step guide to setting up, configuring, customizing, and updating a WordPress website from scratch. Hosting, images, plugins, you name it. We've got videos of her actually building this website and a booklet. It's at least 20 pages with notes, screenshots. It's unbelievable, so helpful. And I'm going to tell you about that course and where you can find it a little bit later in the show today. One of the most important things for you when you're considering your website is imagery. And one of the best things to make images of are your kids in your studio. But of course, we need to make sure we've got permission before we do that. So I've got a great freebie download for you today, and it's a professional photo release checklist, or cheat sheet, I guess. Now, of course, I'm not a lawyer, so this isn't legally binding, and I would recommend, of course, you get legal advice whenever you do these kinds of forms, things. But what we've put together is a cheat sheet of the kinds of photo releases that we use in our studio. So you can see what other people write and where you can put that in your policy and how you can make sure that you are covered for those kind of photos that are so great on websites and Facebook pages. So again, to get today's freebie, just head to timtopham.com/episode 95, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. All right, my guest today is actually a repeat podcast guest, having been on the highly popular episode number 80, which was called Gamified Piano Teaching. It was about piano teaching games. And the thing I love and the thing I think that made it so popular was that she gave away a gamified piano teaching power pack, which was a bundle of 3 of her top games for beginners. So head to episode 80 if you're interested in that. She's a piano teacher, author, music entrepreneur with heaps of experience in blogging and online business. She's also a member of my team, wearing two incredibly important hats. She's my podcast producer and my InnerCircle community manager. And strangely enough, last time on the podcast, she was talking to us about one of her hobbies, which was learning Chinese characters. So we're going to get an update on that in just a second. But welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, Nicola Cantan.
Hi, Tim. Great to be back.
So you had a goal of learning the first 800 Chinese characters, and you were up to about 148 before. How's that progressing?
I was afraid you were going to ask me this. Not very well at the moment. I had about a month where I couldn't get to it at all, or didn't. I mean, couldn't is a strong word. I didn't, and then I fell behind, so I'm like gradually getting back up. I'm still aiming to get to 800 this year, but we'll see how it goes.
You know, with all the stuff that you've got going on, Nicola's running her own training webinars. She's written this book. It's on Amazon. She's coming to the NCKP. She's helping me out with my stuff. I think I'm going to let you off on this occasion, Nicola. So
thank you. Very gracious of you.
So look, let's get straight into it today. Why is a studio website so important?
Well, I'd kind of like to answer that with another question, which is, what do you do when you're looking for something these days? I mean, what does anybody do? Do you go look up the golden pages or whatever it is you call it in wherever you live?
Yellow, is it called golden pages?
Yellow pages in
Yellow
the States?
pages for us.
It's golden here in Ireland. I always get confused about where it's which. But yeah, or even Yelp. Like who goes on Yelp anymore? Yeah. You just Google it, right? And you're not going to show up in the search results if you don't have a website. So if you're looking for a hairdresser, you'll Google hairdresser in my town. And that's what people are going to do when they're looking for piano lessons.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, one thing is having a website, but actually getting into Google's listings, is that actually an easy thing? Does that kind of happen automatically, or do you have to really work at that?
You do have to work at it. But there are some little ways, not tricks, we don't want to trick Google, but little ways to get there a little bit faster, just to show Google that you are relevant to that search, because that's all Google really wants to know. They want to know that when people search on piano lessons in your town, that you're a good result for them. They want to know that that's what people want when they search for that. So as long as you can show that to Google using various different methods of showing up like that, and make sure that you have a high quality website, then you can get into Google, and you can get, especially for a local area, you can get onto that first page. It is achievable.
I was quite surprised when I first started blogging that, and I was blogging on WordPress.com, the free WordPress blog, and I was really surprised that my things just started showing up. This is going back 6 years. I didn't really put any thought into it. But Google is clever enough that as new content emerges, I don't know how it keeps up with the billions of pages that must be loaded up every day, but it somehow does. And suddenly these things do start appearing. But as you say, there are tweaks and some strategies you can use to make sure Google knows what you're about and puts you in the right search results. I think that's probably what we're talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's come back to that idea a little bit later, because I want to talk about WordPress for a second, because we've already used the word a couple of times. There are other sites out there. Wix is one of them. What are some other free site building websites?
Weebly. Weebly is one of them. Squarespace, I'm not sure if it's free, but I know it's popular.
Yep. And then you've got sites like, I think maybe Teachable, and sites that people can book courses on and things like that. So there are lots and lots of different ways people could build a website. Why do you build your website on WordPress? Why is my whole business built on WordPress?
Yeah.
What is it about WordPress, and why are we recommending teachers use it?
Because it's high quality, and what Google wants is a high quality website. The thing about really easy to use interfaces like Squarespace or something like that that's completely drag and drop is that they have to put in a whole mess of kind of code and back-end stuff to make it pretty for you to use. And that kind of just makes for maybe a slow website, or maybe just one that's a little bit clogged up. And Google likes fast, efficient websites with all the information baked in. So that's why we recommend WordPress. And I think it's something around 95 or 97% of the websites out there are built using it, which I think kind of speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
It is some crazy figure like that.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of big websites too, things that you would never predict. Perhaps not airlines and banks and things. I'm sure they're all proprietary, but a lot of big name companies use WordPress because it's, as Nicola says, it's stable and functional, but it's also very customizable and updatable. And that's one of the other things that I think people are learning more about. It's funny going to websites, and I'm often looking at what other people are doing in the piano teaching sphere, and some of the websites you land on are just terrible. Look like they haven't been updated for 20 years, literally. And in actual fact, when you've got something like WordPress behind you, it's incredibly easy to keep up and make things look good all the time, I think. So
exactly, yeah.
What are the differences between WordPress.com and WordPress.org? This question comes up all the time.
Yeah, well, it is super confusing. Like, I don't blame people for being confused by this. Why are they called that? Anyway, WordPress.org is what we're talking about. So that's where you self-host your website, and it's basically kind of like a software. And WordPress.com is like a blogging platform that's completely free, but it's not as adaptable, and it's not this great setup that we're talking about.
So tell us about hosting. You've used that word. What does that mean?
That just means somewhere to store your files, basically. So in the same way that your computer has a drive on it where you store your files, your website files need to go somewhere, so that when somebody loads it up, those have to come somewhere. They have to be on some kind of computer somewhere. And that's what a host does. It provides you with that space. Great.
Yes, because your website isn't held on your computer. People aren't accessing your computer at home, right?
Yeah, because what if you turn it off?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
that wouldn't work.
So WordPress is software. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nicola, because you're a superstar at this. WordPress is software that sits on top of the computers at the host, right? It's like a framework. Kind of like
software. I think we call it a platform, but yeah, it's basically software.
Yeah. So in building, for people that haven't built their own WordPress website, they'll need to get a host package. Yep. So somewhere to store their website. You can get that quite cheaply, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one we're recommending in the course is, I think in dollars it's $4.95 or something like that. It's €3.95 a month, so it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, and that's fantastic to get started with, and that's what $60 a year or something or less. Brilliant.
Yeah,
and for that you get fast host. You get the support of them, so they can help you set things up. But pretty much with one click, you load the framework of WordPress onto that site, and then you can simply start adding pages and adding pictures and all that kind of stuff. So it is really modular and functional and customizable for any teacher. I mean, anyone can do this, right? Particularly with your help.
Yeah, definitely. I think people get scared off with the whole hosting thing and how scary that website looks, because when you log into like the cPanel, that's when people go, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to go with Squarespace. But once you get WordPress installed, which I help people do in the course, then it's easy to use. It's a good interface. There's nothing scary about it.
Yeah. And cPanel, what's that?
That is your actual host's kind of interface that you need to get through. I see it as just a thing to work through every so often to get something done. It's like this horrible experience, but it's not that bad once you know where you're going and you can be walked through it.
Yeah, and in the course, because I've actually just taken Nicola's course to test it out with another one of my domains just to see how it all works and remind myself of what it's like to set up a website, because it's been a very long time since I set mine up. And literally in the step-by-step process, I think you spend maybe a minute or two in this thing called cPanel, which is a very unattractive interface for running your hosting. But again, it's like click here, and then you're out of there. And then WordPress itself is great.
Definitely. I mean, I recorded the video of that step. So the whole thing, setting up the hosting, installing WordPress, and getting into that WordPress interface. And I think the total is about 9 minutes. Yeah. So that's it.
Start to finish.
You just get through it and it's done. Yeah.
That's great. You never have to worry about it again. Okay. So what about just having a Facebook page? What's the advantage of a standalone website over a Facebook page?
Well, I think there's two main reasons why you need a website and not just a Facebook page. There are, of course, others, but number one is you probably won't show up with your Facebook page in Google, which is what we've been talking about, or another search engine. It's very unlikely that Google is going to show you a Facebook page. If you just think about your searches, that's not usually what shows up. So that's number one. And number two is you own your own website. If you set this up in self-hosting, that's yours and you control it. Whereas Facebook could do anything. They're a private company. They could do absolutely anything and your whole page could be gone. They could just decide there are no pages anymore. And then what are you going to do if that's how your business is built? So you really need it to be your own place, your own home on the web.
Great. So you get the advantage of you own it, you're controlling it, you can contact people through it, even if Facebook goes under, or I don't think that's going to happen actually, but as you say, if they change the rules, yeah.
But they do change the rules a lot.
They do, absolutely. Okay, so we've kind of covered that idea that really you should get a WordPress site. And what about starting on the free WordPress and then migrating to the hosted?
It certainly is a way to get started. I just know that I know several people personally who have done that and are currently migrating over, and it is such a pain. So once you get started, you're going to get comfortable with that. And the more you get into it, the more painful it's going to be to change over. So I just think it's better to get it set up right in the first place.
I'm one of those people, actually. I have migrated now, but I started on the free one. And I remember it was possible, but to get my subscribers out of there, because they control everything. You have to kind of ask for them to give you your subscriber email list and transfer it across. It was a pain. It was doable, but it was a bit of a pain. So I think with the way that you've structured this course, just so simple, step by step, it's like, why wouldn't you? No brainer. Just go for the hosted one, because you get into the headspace, and the more you use it, the better you get at it. So
yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's talk about, we've got the website set up. It's kind of blank now. What pages must we have?
What pages must we have? So in the course, I get people to install 4 different pages. You have your home page, your about page, about me, about us, whatever it is, lessons, so just about lesson information, and then your contact page. That's all I start with, because I think that's the bare bones of a good studio website that's simple and that you can start navigating. So I think those are the essentials to include. And then you might have all sorts of other stuff. I know people have testimonial pages or pages with videos of recitals, or they may have forms embedded for things like that. But, you don't need to get complicated in the beginning. So I think those 4 are the essentials.
And what about writing blog posts? A lot of teachers will be aware that that's what I do and you do, and they've often read other people's. Should they start writing content like that, and is there advantages to that?
There certainly are advantages. I would just think about who you're going to write it for, because really, if you're going to write lots of blog posts in order for parents to find you in search, it's going to have to be directed at them. And it's harder to write a lot of content, as I've seen a lot of people slowly discover. They end up writing for teachers, and that's not going to be a huge benefit to you in terms of getting found. The benefit of having a blog is that you constantly have fresh content, which again, Google likes that. So they like your website to have new information on it all the time. But you need to think about it, because it's a big commitment if you're going to be consistent about it.
Yeah, totally.
As you know.
Yeah. As we both know well, it takes a lot of effort to keep updating things and bringing out new ideas. But we both love doing it, so it's a good thing.
Definitely, yeah.
What about having a plan for your website of what you want people to do when they land on it? So you're trying to attract parents. Is it important to have a big fat red button saying, click here to book your lesson? Or, I'm being a bit silly, but is that important?
Yes, of course it is. I mean, you need to, if you think about, again, how you surf the internet, if you go to a website you probably have about 10 or 15 other tabs open. Most people do, or you're on your phone and you're just scrolling through random stuff. Yeah, we're all guilty of it. And then just think about it. So you're scrolling through this homepage. Oh, this looks very nice. She's got a lovely setup. Oh, she seems to be a very nice teacher. And then, I don't know, someone sends you a video of a cat. And you leave that website without doing anything. And you never come back to it. Or you might come back to it and go, I don't know what this is, and just close it. So you need to get them to act quickly. You need to get them immediately to take action. And the best way to do that is things like really obvious buttons. It might sound odd to say, click here too. People know they're supposed to click, but they don't. They won't click unless you tell them. You know, it's proven that people actually click things more that say, click here to do something. People need very direct things because there's so many things vying for their attention.
And so what might a teacher have on that button? Click here to what?
Well, it could be to find out more about your lesson structure if they're just on the home page. If you want them to find out more information, it could be to book a free trial lesson, a consultation, call you on the phone. You can have buttons that send straight to a phone number, or it could be to send you an email. But you just need them to take some kind of action that commits them to something before they run away.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's called a call to action. And
yes.
You can even put this in maybe in your footer. So the space along the bottom of the website often doesn't change. It's the same. It's static for most pages. That's a great place to have a really obvious call to action. Click here for your first free trial lesson or whatever it is. And I think, we should make it clear too that if you do have a call to action, make sure that you're prepared to follow up those emails or be available to have a phone call with the person. Because the worst thing you want to do is to encourage them to do it. They click that button because you've told them to, and then nothing actually happens, right?
Yeah, and the worst, I hate the ones now on lots of older websites. You'll click a link, and it is like a mail to link, but it doesn't work anymore.
Oh, yes.
Because it used to link up to like Outlook or whatever it was supposed to do. And we have all these pop-ups blocked, so it just doesn't do anything. So yeah, make sure it works, make sure it functions well, and make sure you're prepared to answer that or follow up with them or whatever you're supposed to do on your end.
So for those of you who have been listening to the podcast, I think it was episode 92 or thereabouts, we had Chantel Duffield on the show, and she was talking about what actually happens after you get people to click that call to action button. And so she's actually set things up. And this is, I guess, is slightly more advanced than what we were going to talk about today. But you can automate a series of email responses to that person that's clicked your button. And even while you sleep, people can be nurtured into welcoming to your studio without you actually having to do anything. So do check out that episode from just a few episodes ago. Fantastic interview with Chantel. She's right on the ball when it comes to online retention and nurturing ideas for websites. So, do check that out. We'll put a link in the show notes anyway. Okay, So we've got our pages. We've got a call to action of some sort. Let's talk about images, because everything today is image and video. So where do we find these images?
Yeah, and I think people who maybe don't put this content together don't really realize that it's transitioned as much as it has. But yeah, everything is images and video. So the images, you can find stock photos, absolutely. But as you mentioned in a lot of your website critiques in the Inner Circle, it's so much better to have real photos because people see right through the stock photos. You know, they're everywhere. I often see the same ones repeated because there aren't that many of pianos. So you just see them over and over.
I've been guilty of using some that I've then seen other places as well. Piano teachers, particularly teaching kids. There's not many of those, so I'm not using them so much anymore.
Yeah, and there's definitely not many with kids without bad hand positions. So there's very slight pickings without them like bending their fingers backwards or something, or sitting basically on the floor. Yeah, so you can find stock photos and you can scrounge around for them. Make sure they are legal if you're going to use them and that you have permission to do so. Don't grab things off Google or anything like that. But the best thing to do is to take real photos in your studio. Tim mentioned the cheat sheet we're going to be giving you, so make sure you get that permission and you have that in place. And then make sure you take the photos. So at group lessons, at recitals, when your student finishes a book, when they get their exam certificate, whatever they're doing, make sure you're constantly taking photos. I'm not good enough at this, especially in the private lessons. I remember to do it at recitals, but it's so tough to remember when you're in the middle of teaching. But it really is so great when you go back and you have these things just to throw up there and they bring the whole page to life.
And a lot of the final pages in method books and things is a certificate of completion for students. So get them to hold that up, sign it, make a big deal of it, get the parent to photograph you and the kid and the piano behind you. Smiling photos of kids with awards, absolute winner when parents come to websites.
Awards, yeah. And I've started being better recently at taking photos when they compose something as well, because I think that's great to have. So whenever they compose a piece, I make sure to snap them with it, because they look so proud as well. So that's great.
Absolutely. So you're talking about holding the printout of their work sort of thing? The
printout, or, if they've just drawn a picture with music notes on it, if they're, 4 years old, that's their composition. So that's great too.
Yeah, that's very cool. Have you got a couple of your favorite places to go for free images online, royalty-free images online?
I mostly use Pixabay, which I think you've looked at before as well. I just heard about a new one today, which is called Libre Photo. Do you know that site?
No. How do you spell that?
No, Libre Stock. Hang on, I had it open. Libre Stock.
Libre.
Stock.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
.com. That searches other royalty-free sites. So it'll link you up. So it'll search like Pixabay and Pexels and all of those.
Right.
So that could be a handy tool to just get an overview of all the different sites.
And I learned recently that there's a setting in Google Photos, so Google Image Search. There's a little click-down menu where you can select the copyright of the photos that you're viewing. I'm pretty sure. Have you used this before?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, there's a little checkbox that says you can go royalty free or paid or stock or whatever on there. I'll see if I can find it just before we finish today. But that could be a good way. But really, I was reading on another forum. I can't remember where it was, but someone being accused by one of the big stock image companies of using their work illegally.
Yeah.
And it's just very easy to do. If you are finding things on Google Image Search, assume it is all copyrighted unless you know for sure it's not. And so the best place is to go to these royalty-free websites.
No, definitely. In my former life as a designer, I actually had one of my images stolen, and it was printed on the back page of a magazine, which was incredible. Yeah. I got them to pay, obviously, because I happened to find it. But yeah. So make sure, they're artists too. They photograph their work or whatever they did. So make sure you're attributing or whatever you're supposed to do in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all artists, so good to support other photographers too. I've just had a look on Google Image Search. So if you search on Google and you go to images as the search, there's a tools button just under the search box. And then one of the options under that is usage rights. So you can go labeled for non-commercial use or labeled for license or whatever it is. You can have a look there. There's all sorts of settings: color, size, file type, time. When it was, I didn't even know that was there. So there you go. Image search. You
wanted it at night or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. There's just a little tip is when you go to the website to download the photo, do take a screen grab of it being on that site, just in case, especially if you're going to use it prominently. It's a good idea to just have that screenshot in case they change the rights later or something, and then try to catch it, just in case.
How do you do a screen grab?
On
and what does that
Windows,
mean? What does that
mean? I just mean take a picture of your screen. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So on a Mac, that's just Command Shift 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Command Shift 4. On a Windows, unless you have a print screen button, I think you need a separate tool. But just if you are worried about something, or if you're going to be using it, for a long time, I think it's a good idea to just take that screenshot so you can show where you got it.
That's great. All right, so I think we're building up our pages. We've got some pictures of smiling, happy kids, or some royalty-free stock photos if we decide to use them. We haven't talked about video too. How do we get a video to show on our screen of our website?
So you don't upload videos directly to your site. That's the first thing to say, because the files are just too big. So you don't ever want to do that. The simplest way to get a video onto your site is to just upload it to YouTube, and then you can just paste the web address for that video into your site if it's on WordPress, and it'll just show up like magic. I think sometimes people are a bit nervous of putting it on YouTube because they don't want it to show up in search and stuff, but you can just set it as unlisted and it won't show up as a search result unless you send people the link directly that way. So that's the simplest way to do it, and it's free. So that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And unlisting a video is very easy on YouTube, and you can do it when you load it up. One of the options on the screen is pretty clear, is if it's private, unlisted, or listed. Just choose unlisted, and any videos you upload to YouTube won't be found in search. People will only find it if you embed it somewhere, so you put it on your website, or if people have the link to it. So that's a great tip. All right, what about writing then? The style of writing. Many of us have been to university. We learnt to write in full sentences, long paragraphs, with third person. Should we do that on our websites?
Yeah, forget it. Forget everything you learned. So maybe some of the grammar, that's about it. If you think about the websites that you actually read, they're going to be short paragraphs, short sentences, lots of what we call white space, i.e. just like blank space on the page, because people are on their mobile phones or they're scanning, as we say, 15 different tabs at one time. So they don't have the attention span to read your academic essay. They want just short, easy to digest content. So make sure you break it up. Most paragraphs, if you look at a blog or something like that, most paragraphs won't be never more than 3 sentences. A lot of them will be 1 or 2, and some of them will be 1 word, and that's fine. You can put 1 word and a full stop if that's how you're going to talk.
Shock horror.
I know.
But it captures attention. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy
when
to
I started
scan.
writing, I sort of felt like I needed permission to do things like start sentences with the word but. You know, that wasn't allowed. But it's
I agree.
fine.
I
That's the
agree.
way we talk. I start sentences with but all the time. So why wouldn't I do that when I'm writing to people online? It's a lot more conversational, which is kind of good news because it means it's easier to write. You know, you can write as yourself. You don't have to go into some academic voice.
And I just want to reiterate what Nicola's just said about paragraphs. Please, please, please. It's so easy to break up your paragraphs. 1 to 2 sentences per paragraph. I know that sounds really short, but often if you're reading on a mobile, the width is only an inch or 2.
That's most of your screen.
Yeah, that's right. And you want it to be scannable. So that white space, the breaks between paragraphs is so important. Head to Nicola's website or check out my blog. We both follow this, as do most modern blogs. So if you've already got a website out there, it's easy to change. So just go and edit those paragraphs.
Yeah, that's one of the quickest ways to make your website look old-fashioned is these big blocks of text. You just know it's not been updated in quite a while if that's what you see. Just walls of text. So yeah, break up the paragraphs. Hit the return key often.
Yes, that's right. And it's okay to start with but. Or and, capital A and. I love starting with and. I feel so bad, so guilty about it. It's great.
It's a rebel.
I know. All right, well, let's talk about mobiles for a second. We know that more and more people are using tablets and mobiles to access websites. I do it. A lot of people listening will be doing it as well. How do we make sure our website works on mobile and looks good?
Well, the good news is if you set it up with WordPress now on your self-hosted website, and just download a theme that's been updated anywhere recently, it will be mobile responsive. Almost all of them are now. It's only older themes that aren't. So if you set this up in WordPress and you follow the advice in the course and download with one of the themes I recommend there, they'll all be mobile responsive. And if you want to check it, just, take the tab and just change the window and just change the size and see if it sort of shuffles stuff around. Even on your desktop computer, you can do that. If it starts shuffling things around and moving things underneath each other, images and stuff like that, then it is mobile responsive, and that's what you need, definitely.
Now, you've mentioned the word theme. I don't think we talked about that earlier. Can you just tell us, can you give us what does that mean?
That's the thing that changes how your website looks. So WordPress is just, like we say, kind of like a software. So the theme is what decides where things go, where the menu is, and where the logo goes and all that kind of stuff. So it's what decides how your website looks and the setup of it.
A good analogy I've heard is that WordPress is like the skeleton or the body, the human, and the theme is like the clothes that they're wearing. So are you bright and colourful? Are you a little bit more darker or whatever it is? That's the theme. So you're talking about the fact that most themes built any time in the last 3 or 4 years, you should be mobile responsive. And all that means is that it will automatically look good on any size screen. So you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
Yep. Beautiful. And in fact, WordPress itself comes with a theme or multiple themes, I can't remember, free, right? That you can just start using straight away. They might not be the most pretty, amazing things, but they're there. There'll always be a sample theme built in. And then there are tons of themes that people just create themselves and upload so you can explore them. There's quite a lot there to get you started. Can you remember, just going off topic slightly, when I started my website, I used a Genesis framework. I don't want to confuse people too much, but
that sounds scary.
Do you know? Are you familiar with those? I don't think I use it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's what I use. So,
okay,
yeah, but it does sound scary.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That just means that that's a theme, but it's not what your website ends up looking like. So it has what's called child themes. So it's like you have your skeleton, which is WordPress, and then it's like maybe the skin, and then the clothes still have to go on top of that. So it's like an extra layer, and it just sets everything up, but it doesn't decide finally how things look until you put a child theme on top of that.
Okay, what's the advantage, if any, of using that kind of a framework?
Well, if you're making a lot of changes to your theme, any type of theme, you're going to want to use a child theme anyway, because otherwise your changes can get lost. But that's something a bit further down the line and a bit complicated. But Genesis is just a really good system. It's really lightweight, so it doesn't impact your site load time too much. And then you have these different options of child themes, so you can decide how it looks after that.
Okay, what about when we go to websites and things pop up and, things slide in and, all these kind of different things you can get? How do you get those kind of things to happen on your website? I'm not saying that those pop-ups are all a good idea, but what's the concept behind adding functionality to a WordPress site? How does that work?
Yeah, all the stuff you're describing would be a plugin. So plugins are like extra little bits that clip on to your website. So it's like
your hair clip and a hat.
They're like the accessories, I guess. So they're extra little bits of code that you install on top of your theme and your WordPress setup. So they'll do various different things. They could be doing anything. They could be adding those little social buttons that you see, like the little Facebook counters, or like you say, different pop-ups and slide-in things. You could be doing all sorts of stuff. So that's what plugins are made for.
There are thousands, tens of thousands of them. It's a little bit like the App Store. One of the cautionary tales I would have for anyone using WordPress, and suddenly you can be a kid in a candy store when it comes to plugins. You can find all these amazing things that you can do suddenly by just clicking add plugin. But just a word of warning that not all of them are good. Some of them can really slow down your site. Some of them can break your site. So do be careful when you're loading up a whole lot of plugins. And it's, in fact, much better not to load plugins unless you really need that.
Absolute minimum.
Yeah, absolute minimum. And we've got some suggestions in your PDF about some of the plugins that we recommend people have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very easy to get very excited and just go crazy, but your website will just grind to a halt.
And they can fight with each other too. Sometimes two plugins completely fine separately, and then they have a little war on your website.
Yeah.
So you need to be careful. And the other thing to follow on from that, if you do go a bit crazy and install a bunch of plugins and then decide you don't need them, don't just leave them there. Delete them straight away, because you'll forget what they were even for and worry that you need them. So just get rid of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can always deactivate and remove plugins that you add by mistake. And look, while we're on that, for people that break their sites, because this can happen, you get what is called the white screen of death on WordPress sites. I think that came from the blue screen of death that Windows used to give you sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's what it's from, yeah.
So look, we've all done it. If you're going to build your own website, you will at times break things and things can just suddenly go blank. So I think it's really, really helpful and it's a really good peace of mind to have a developer who can help you out of those situations. Now, developers are incredibly hard to find. So I'm really pleased that I've actually been sharing my own developer who works with me for my community members. So if you're interested in having that peace of mind, then Harjinder, who's my developer in India, is amazing. And we've got an incredibly special deal of web development for piano teachers in my community, $15 an hour. If you need his help, or if you need to transfer from an old site, if you need to move from Wix and you want to go to WordPress, he can actually set all this stuff up for you. So he's an absolute superstar. And that's one of the benefits of being in my InnerCircle community. Okay, so look, unfortunately, this podcast is not very visual, but the content we're talking about is very visual. So
yeah,
what we've actually decided to do is put together a webinar, and it's actually going to be held this weekend. So if you are listening to this on the release date of the Friday, the 7th of July, then we're actually going to be hosting a webinar this Sunday night USA time. That's Melbourne morning time on the 9th of July, 10th in Melbourne. We're going to be actually screen sharing and showing you behind these websites what WordPress actually looks like and getting some idea of the setup of these things, showing you how easy it is. We might show you about adding some images and what to do with file sizes and how to embed those YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. You'll actually be able to watch Nicola working on a website and talking you through how to do things. So I'm really, really excited. This is going to be great fun. And Nicola, teachers have been asking me how to do this for so long, and I'm just so glad that we've been able to work together and put together a course which just steps people through it. It's going to be so good. So to find out more about that, save your seat. As usual, there will be a replay because that will be midnight London. So Nicola's in Ireland. It's going to be a late one for you, but if you can't make it live, as usual, we'll have the replay available for you. So if you would like to find out about that webinar, then it's at timtopham.com/training. That link will take you straight to the registration page. All right. Well, look, I can't wait to see you in just a few days when we'll be doing this webinar. Is there anything else that we haven't covered today that is important just to mention before people run off and go and get their hosting and all that kind of stuff?
I think the most important thing is that it's not as scary as it sounds. Like when you hear these terms, it might sound like it's completely overwhelming, but it's not. And if you follow the course along with me or just follow a step-by-step tutorial of some kind at least, it's not as scary as it might seem at first. And it is worth doing it right in the first place instead of doing all sorts of other nonsense and then ending up at wordpress.com, .org, excuse me. Yeah.
And look, when you've got someone as talented and skilled at teaching as Nicola, please take us up on this offer. It's a free webinar. Make sure you're there because it's just going to be so good. And we're going to be giving away a few bonus downloads with plug-in checklists and all sorts of things like that. So where can people check out your website, Nicola, and the things that you're doing?
They can find me at Colourful Keys, colourful with 2 U's, .ie. So it's the UK spelling. And they can also find my book and other stuff about me at pianophysician.com. And I'm Colourful Keys on all social media, so that's where you'll find me.
Fantastic. Give us a quick plug for the book. Tell us about the Piano Physician.
Oh, if you search Amazon for piano practice, it should show up at the top there. It's called the Piano Practice Physician's Handbook, and it's about curing piano student ailments. So finding proactive cures to common problems that students have, like floppy fingertips or starting at the beginning every single time they play a piece, or other things that drive us crazy. So it's about finding creative solutions to the things that make us bang our heads against walls.
I can highly recommend it. It was an absolute pleasure that Nicola asked me to proofread and have an early look at her book. I can highly recommend it. It's just a great summary of all those things that we are always talking to kids about, but gives you some new ideas and puts it all in one kind of reference. And I love the branding of being the doctor effectively. I think it's great. So do check that out. Piano Physician's Handbook, right? Piano Practice Physician's Handbook.
Physician's Handbook. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Nicola. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you in a few days on this webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. See you soon.
All right. Now, don't forget to grab your freebie download. It's available at timtopham.com/episode 95. And that, of course, as we said earlier on, is our cheat sheet of photo releases. You're going to need this if you want to use photos of any of your kids on your website. You must get permission from parents, and we'll show you how to do that in that freebie. And of course, next week, we've got another great episode for you. It's episode number 96, and I've got my great friend, fellow Melbourne music educator, Katie Wardrobe, is on the show to talk tech games for rhythm and composition. Katie is basically the superstar of technology and music education, and she has got some great fun things to do. And we're doing this boom, clap, slap game and all sorts of stuff. It's great fun. Make sure you check it out. I'll see you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast. We'd love to help take your teaching to the next level as a member of our supportive community. Use the coupon Piano Podcast for $100 off an annual membership of Tim's InnerCircle today. To find out more, head to timtopham.com/community.